Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes. 5 topics, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, a guest, some singing, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary.
Hi.
How are you?
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm well. How are you?
I am fine.
What are you drinking?
I am drinking champagne.
Nice.
Because this is what you drink when Nazis are coming, because you want to drain all the champagne
so
they can't drink it.
So they don't take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm having water because I think that's also
You don't want to do that either.
what we have to drink because I had a lot of this champagne earlier.
Yeah.
And I thought I might fall asleep.
But I have tidings of great joy.
Oh, you do?
I do. I have tidings of great joy because the whole thing is we're done now. The problem has been solved. Everything's going to revert back to normal because Hakeem Jeffries has come up with a nickname for Trump. He's going to call him Captain Chaos, apparently having never seen the Cannonball Run. So that's it.
Oh, well, that fixes everything.
Right? I'm so glad that our leaders are just on it.
They are.
It's just on
it.
It only took, 8.5 years to come up with the nickname. So pretty good.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Little branding.
I think we're in good.
Fixes everything.
I think we're in good shape.
Oh, I'm so pleased you told me that. Makes me feel better.
Right? Isn't everybody? Okay, I think our work is done here. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Captain Chaos.
Captain Chaos.
Problem solved.
Yeah. That's from, you remember Cannonball Run? It's Tom DeLuise and Cannonball
I do remember Cannonball Run, but I did not remember that part of it because it's so unmemorable.
Burt Reynolds, though. Come on.
No, I mean Captain Chaos.
All right.
All right.
You didn't. I think we had 3 channels, and that was on they just run these things all the time. So that's that's how it goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. What else you got for me today? Anything?
Anything like jokes wise? I've got. I'm gonna have more champagne. But I've got no jokes.
Perfect. I'm gonna have some coffee. It's time for some coffee.
There's no jokes. Oh wait. I think we should play a game. This is a drinking game for you out there.
Okay.
Every time we say the word Krasnov, you have to drink. Okay.
Okay.
And if you don't know what Krasnov is, you'll find out. And it'll be worth it.
Oh God.
It'll be worth it.
Should we get into it?
I think we got to get into it.
Do you want to jump into it so we can get to our guest?
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with the first 8 minutes. You want to do the first segment?
Yeah.
All right. He can't say no.
Yeah. Show tunes, man. Because again, Sound of Music, Nazis. It's all this Nazi stuff. I don't know. Okay, so I'm talking about Koff Patel. As you know, he's now the head of the FBI.
Yeah.
He gave a real tough guy, Clint Eastwoody press conference today. My goodness, quaking in my boots. Koff Patel. Gosh. He had some Bond villain woman standing next to. The whole thing was a joke. I don't know where the criminals are. I would like to see cameras of criminals on him laughing. That's a reality show,
Which eye will he be following us with? Is that terrible? That's terrible.
Whatever. Mark Burnett, if you're listening, that's the reality show that we want. Find criminals to laugh at him. And if you want to find them, you could just look in the White House. Pretty easy. West Wing is loaded with criminals.
I can't with this.
Look, all joking aside, this is really dangerous for a variety of reasons. The first reason is he has basically said over and over again that he's about vengeance and retribution. These people have been making lists of people that they don't like, political enemies of Trump, people on the J6 committee, people who, at the FBI wants to get rid of anyone who worked on the investigation into the, maybe if you don't want to be investigated for a major crime, don't fucking commit the major crime. I don't know. That's just me. It's just me.
That's what they used to say.
You can't do the time. Don't do the crime, Donald. Anyway, but it goes beyond that. They're going to start, I think, going after people like Adam Schiff, like Liz Cheney, like Adam Kinzinger, Eric Swalwell. We're going to hear a lot of, anytime he opens his mouth, Fang starts trending. That's going to be a thing. And the reason why it's going to be a thing is because now Koff Patel, at long last, has access to the files, the mighty FBI files, which stretch back, God knows what. He has access to Hoover's stuff now, right?
Sure.
Yeah, probably a Roy Cohn file in there, I would think, but probably not going to exist for much longer.
Probably.
So my prediction, what I think he is going to do is because what he is in this universe of Trump is he's a fabulist. He's a guy who takes a couple of data points and just makes up shit with it to make somebody seem like the deep state's coming and it's the immigrants' fault and Ukraine is bad and Hunter Biden did everything.
He builds
whatever.
the narratives.
Yeah. He creates the narratives, right? So now he has access to files. So he's going to have official documents, official government documents that corroborate his narrative. Now, he's going to cherry pick stuff. He's going to say, oh, this is a good paragraph where it's somebody saying something that someone else said. So I can say that they said it, right? You know?
Right.
Elon Musk is a genius.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, Greg Olear said Elon Musk is a genius. Right. No, there's no sarcasm. And we're going to see that. Right. So that's a problem. The other problem is that Trump fired the archivist, you know. So NARA is now being run by Marco Rubio somehow.
What the fuck? This makes sense. He has a job.
Does he?
That's a very big job.
Is it?
To be the archivist? Yes.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Secretary of State. His job is to go around humiliating himself. That's his job, which frankly has been his job for a very long time.
Yeah, apparently so.
Yeah. So
Lil Marco.
This is all a problem because, you know, the archives, and we'll get into this maybe a little more next week. The archives does a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff there.
We actually need a show just on the archives. Really, truly.
What's in the archives that we might not know about? Like, is there like intelligence stuff there?
There's intelligence stuff there. Every president has all of their papers and all of the, you know, everything that happens during a presidency, even the private stuff, the confidential stuff, everything goes through the archives. Remember when Trump was tearing stuff up and people were running around like crazy in his first term going, oh my God, you can't just tear those papers up and put them like
right.
That's because it all needs to be preserved. There's actual laws around preservation of documents and preservation of anything written down, anything received, any transcripts. It's all there, all of it. Yeah, it's a massive undertaking. Yeah. So
they can dump stuff or they can get rid of stuff, and we're never going to know. That's also a problem. Finally, you know, he works for Trump. Like Kosh Patel, Pam Bondi, Devin Nunes all have big stakes in that Trump media company.
Yeah. Which
I think they still have.
I don't think they divested, you know, or put it in a whatever, you know, holding brick themselves out of it. So they're like his shareholders and his employees.
But
and in our Justice Department.
Right. They're in charge of the Justice Department, which I think we need to have scare quotes over. It's now Orwell. It's pure Orwell, where justice means criminality. Yeah. Because these are people that are, you know, Pam Bondi, give her 25 grand and the problem goes away, right? Or is it 50 grand?
Such a cheap date.
Yeah. You know, I mean, that's nothing. That's for these people.
Nothing.
That's pocket change. So
that's not even Melania's nightly hourly rate.
Oh, wow. You know, but when you're a high paid consultant.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. How we doing? Is that 8 minutes? Feels like.
I mean, there's 2 minutes left. I guess the thing is, look, we have survived a very corrupt FBI director before. Right. One that actually was in there, couldn't get rid of him. Nobody could get rid of him because he had blackmailing everybody. And he was blackmailing presidents, and he was blackmailing anybody that could possibly move against Hoover. Right? Hoover.
Oh, Hoover.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the FBI has this very a lot of big stains in its history, but it's also a massive agency with lots of divisions. I think the division to be most afraid of and terrified of in terms of Kosh Patel being in there, it's the same kind of thing as having Tulsi Gabbard, head of intelligence, is the counterintelligence. When everything got shifted at the FBI after 9/11 to create this sort of homeland security and FBI has always, since the Hoover years, been engaged in some degree with counterintelligence and with spying beyond domestic borders. They really have been. They did in World War II and all of that. But it was that reorg in the early 2000s was a big deal. And there are a lot of folks that write about intelligence professionals, not from the FBI side, but from other agencies, intelligence agencies, especially those that are focused on international, that have been somewhat vocal, I would say, in the last 10 years or so about how the FBI needs to get out of counterintelligence. That it's right. As valuable as it is because they're looking for bad actors on domestic soil. It was
muddies the waters.
Yeah. That being said, you know, we need the FBI for helping us identify and prevent terror attacks, for things like kidnappings, for things like trafficking. Like there's massive crimes and important crimes, domestic crimes, that we need the FBI. We need this law enforcement agency. I don't know what it's going to become with this crazy person. I'm sorry. Come and get me, Kash Patel. Like this fabulous, as you say, in charge of it all. I just am very worried about counterintelligence. I'm very worried about that particular division with this guy at the head.
What's going to happen is there's going to be a MAGA Gestapo is what's going to happen. So fun times. Moving on. Wait, I have to have another sip of champagne.
You better have some more champagne.
You know, this is from the. It's not champagne. It's unless it's from the Champagne region of France. If it's from Russia, it's from the Krasnov. It's called
the Krasnov. Yeah, the trader. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to talk about the farmers.
Yeah,
there's a lot to talk about. There was stuff I even pointed to. It was like, oh my God, we're not even going to have a chance to talk about XYZ because there's so much happening. So, but I feel like there's some stuff going on with American farmers on U.S. soil that is important to note right now. I'm very worried about our food.
Yeah, you are. You keep talking about it, and it scares me.
Talking about it. It's scary. I'm worried about our drugs as well. I'm worried about, the oversight of all of that. But I am very concerned about the food. So the U.S. farmers have found themselves sort of under a three-pronged attack from the Trump administration in this very short period of time that many of them were not expecting. They weren't paying attention. They voted for him or they, whatever. They maybe weren't connecting some of the great sort of benefits they were engaging in recently to the Biden administration because there was such poor messaging around all of that. So they didn't even know how good they had it. And that it was all going to get torn apart. So here are the three attacks as I was sort of watching this of like, what's going on? Why is this administration really coming after farmers? The first thing that the Trump administration is doing is dismantling and getting rid of that infrastructure, the big Biden Infrastructure Act and that huge effort, right? So it turns out about $20 billion of the Infrastructure Act was going directly to U.S. farmers. So 19 point something, conditioned upon them bringing their technology, their farms, their land up into this sort of conservation mode. So preserving the soil, doing certain things that actually are an expense. It's an investment in the farms to get them to take into account everything from climate change to sort of, longevity, turning your crops, things that were necessary in terms of progress with our food production in this country. And so though that money had been allocated, but it was also going directly to the farmers. So they were receiving it if they were engaged in those methods of like, okay, I'm going to do some conservation on my land. I'm going to, turn the soil over, these kinds of things. Oh, we lost our Licks the kitty cat. Lixie, it's okay. So that it's fine. I'm going to plug in the light in a second because you guys can see me fine.
Yeah.
So the kitty cat was playing with the light. The farmers are noticing, where's my money? Where's my money? They've made an investment based upon this deal. They're expecting this money to come in to help subsidize all the improvements or the changes that they've made, and it's nowhere to be found. This caused a big uproar. It's mainly in Iowa, actually. A lot of the Iowa folks are feeling this. Caused a big uproar. Of course, they're calling their congresspeople and their senators who are then talking to Trump. And there's coming out of the White House now, no. messaging all of a sudden because they realize this is a big fucking deal. The farmers are pissed, right? You've taken their money. They're going to go, they need that money. They've maybe even taken out a loan expecting this money. They're in a pickle. And the whole thing is, oh, no. We just froze the wrong things. We're going to unfreeze that money. Well, they've only unfrozen 1% of it. So they're still not seeing it, even though the messaging, again, it's just like, let's just make the message that we've unfrozen that. Like, as if people are going to, oh, I believe you. No, the farmers are looking. They're like, it's not in my fucking bank account, right? Yeah. What are you unfreezing? I don't have it. And there was a judge, because of course this went to court very quickly. If you can't just freeze this infrastructure, but you have to put these things are already allocated by Congress. You need to put the money where it's supposed to be. And the farmers were part of that. And the judges said, hey, Trump administration, you guys, you can't do this. They're still not acting on that court order. They're not not unfreezing the funds. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that's lane number one is, the Biden stuff that was really benefiting farmers and that they were relying on, Trump is wiping away because it was Biden, right? Attack number two are the tariffs. So a lot of our fertilizer, as it turns out, for a lot of U.S. farmland comes from Canada. And with the trade wars or whatever the fuck we want to call this thing that Trump is engaging in with Canada, the farmers are very concerned that they're not going to be able to fertilize their land, fertilize their crops, or be able to afford to do it because it's just going to be so outrageously expensive. So that's the second attack. They're freaking out about that. Again, another financial attack. And the third thing is actually the workforce. So where you had farmers voting for Trump, most of them voted for Trump because in that first term, there was all this, oh, we're going to build a wall and we're going to blah, and none of it ever happened. And we've got AP is reporting on people.
It's like a quarter mile.
It's a quarter mile of the wall. On workers saying, oh yeah, even the workers, the immigrant, or people who've established residency and can vote, voting for Trump or supporting Trump or loving Trump because they're like, yeah, he didn't do that to the first time. He wasn't going to do that. It was all just a whatever. It's just our fun racism that gets us all excited. Well, but folks are afraid. They're not showing up to work. And you have certain farmers, like dairy farmers, that's not crop specific, right? It's not even harvesting like a pig farmer where you're going to harvest the pigs, or a cattle farmer harvesting for the meat. It's dairy farmers. It's year round. You're milking those cows, right? So you need that labor workforce year round. It's not even the seasonal workers coming in that have those passes. You need established workforce. And one of the dairy farmers I saw was like, okay, well, what if it's Americans taking these jobs now and you have to pay them the wages that he's like, I cannot afford to pay Americans the wages they expect. So this is it's all about this low cost of labor, right? And I can't, they're going to only work 40, 50 hours a week. I need someone to work 800 hours a week, like literally admitting to all this. And sort of like, if I lose my workforce under the conditions that it is right now, I'm out of business in a month, basically, these farmers are saying. So that's the three-prong attack.
It sounds like FAFO, farm around, find out.
Farm around and find out. But I'm pleased that this part of our population and our labor force and our supply, food supply, is waking up to the betrayal and how bad it's going to be for them. But that doesn't do a damn thing about helping our food supply and making sure food gets on the table. Now, while all of this is happening, I'm digging in and learning about J.D. Vance. And it turns out that J.D. Vance has long been, he's a venture capitalist. So everybody wants to think of him as like, oh, no, he's a hillbilly turned senator, and he wrote the great book. Okay, yeah, and maybe there's a book in there. I don't know. But this guy's a VC. He got started with Peter Thiel money, I think, or at least his firm has a big investment from Peter Thiel. And going back
to allowance money.
It's allowance money.
His VC is
it's his like, whatever his play.
Here's $20. Go to the arcade.
His little play thing. Yeah. So but that's his job. That's his business. That's it. That's what he does. And what his firm invests in is from his Naria Capital or Naria Capital. I can't even say it. Cincinnati-based firm. I don't know about the Appalachians. It's in Cincinnati. So he's had a couple companies, and the one now there was App Harvest. I think that imploded or something, and now there's Acre Trader.
Trader with a D, not with a T.
With a D.
Although it should be spelled with a T.
Should be spelled with a T. So this guy's all about investing in businesses or supporting a business model, I should say, that allows opaque purchase of U.S. farmlands. There's already a lot of foreign-owned U.S. farms. But J.D. Vance is ready to crank that up. So if you've got U.S. farmers being bankrupt and having to sell their land, J.D. Vance has an app for you. He has a company for you. He's got a business model, and he's got the people who are coming in and get it for pennies on the dollar. This man is going to stand and make a fortune off of this.
And Peter Thiel will make even more.
And Peter Thiel will make even more.
Yeah. Wow.
Hooray.
You know, when you were explaining all of that,
yeah,
I got a flash of insight as to just the analogy here. Like Congress says the money's supposed to go to, person X. I don't want to say person X because I don't want to use the letter X anymore.
Yeah, we can't use that.
Okay, here's money. It's like somebody saying, here's money. It's going to go to USAID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Trump is like, nah, we're not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I give you money, right? And I say, here, go give this to my wife. And you just take the money and do nothing with it. That is,
I would do a lot with it.
That is stealing, right?
That's stealing.
They're basically stealing the money. And that's what they're doing.
Stealing
the
money.
fucking money. That's what they're doing. They're breaking the law. They're breaking the Constitution to steal money, to fuck over the farmers so that JD Vance's little couch fucker app can get more hits or whatever. That's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
That's where we're at. It's an oblique place, but
just play it.
He's so erratic, got a face like a haddock, but he thinks he's Jude Law in Gattaca, ketamine addict. He's so easy to honey pot, it ain't even funny. He got all of his money from Russia or maybe from Saudi Arabia. Gave Ashley his baby, but didn't go near her labia. Why? X is down, the rocket won't launch. X is down, the rocket won't launch. X is down, the rocket won't launch. Grimes told Azalea his implants are failure. Grimes told Azalea his implants are failure. Grimes told Azalea his implants are failure. Grimes told Azalea his implants are failure.
Chunk just killing it. Just killing it.
I mean,
Just killing it.
I got those lyrics and that sound. What was it, yesterday? 2 days ago?
Wednesday, yeah.
2 days ago. Time stopped. Time stopped.
That's it.
That's your masterpiece.
That's the best one.
It's the
Yeah.
best one.
Thank you. I think it's the best one.
It's the best,
the best
one.
one.
It's coming out. You guys are going to be able to share it. We'll make it
Yeah.
available on all the platforms.
Like
at
as soon as the
little
show
thing.
is over,
As soon as the
I'll
show,
fart around with it.
and
We
it's
should-
up to
yeah.
you to make it go viral. But I think I have a good feeling about this one.
Yeah.
We just want him to see it.
Yeah. This is also known as Greg gets thrown off Twitter.
This is what I was going to start up today. There, we're gonna circle you though. We're not gonna let Cash Patel or Pam Bondi come and take you
Oh
away.
my God, Kosh Patel, please. Okay, let's get to our
Let's
guest.
get to our guest.
We've kept him waiting long enough. He is the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Ukrainian Bar Association. Victor Rud, welcome back.
Victor Rud!
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Okay, that's good. That's
A little warmer perhaps than where you're at, but it's okay.
we're trying to get to the. Do you have any thoughts about what we've covered so far in the show, or you want to just get to the other stuff?
I think it's pretty funny.
Oh, okay, good. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It's a different take on on a discussion like this from your typical chat show. So I enjoyed it.
Good.
Nice. Good.
Good. Now, just for background for people watching not familiar, I've learned an awful lot from you about Ukraine, going back to before the invasion. Even I had you on my podcast years ago now, and you went through this whole kind of historical overview for me, based on things that you've been writing for years, and really crystallized my understanding of especially the Russia-Ukraine relationship, which has been completely misunderstood in the West, and especially, in Washington by, presidents of both parties and all that.
Mm.
So we don't have time to go into all of this now, but are there any key points that you think that people should know, who are new to this? New to the history, what are some of the key takeaways that people should know?
Well, probably the predicate point is that this Ukraine was always a part of Russia syndrome. It's so deeply embedded in our educational system. That's simply not the case. I'm not going to go into the reasons for it. There's obviously a long history, but if anybody doesn't question that seeming equivalence because of obviously 11 years of war now by Russia against Ukraine, then their ability to understand anything further, I think, is going to be very, very limited. And just in a nutshell, the fundamental point now in this war and the reason for the invasion is not a territorial dispute. Russia, as we know, is the largest country in the world. Ukraine is a big country. Actually, it's the biggest country in Europe, but it's about 0.02 or 0.07% of entire Russian territory. So that's not the point. And the point is actually the dichotomy between the two nations, opposite ends of the spectrum. So much so that when the Soviet Union was starting to disintegrate, the final coup de grace, the stake in the heart, so to speak, that ensured the disintegration of the USSR was Ukraine's renewed assertion of independence. And that was it. That caved the USSR. It could not exist without Ukraine as an integral part. And the reason for that is not so much its resources, both agricultural, as we know, I mean, you're talking about farmers, Stephanie, but also the minerals and the like, which were one of the reasons for Hitler's war in Europe, which was to conquer, occupy, and colonize Ukraine, partially for the grain, but in large measure also because of its minerals. But the cause of the animosity and a history of genocidal policies by Russia against Ukraine is that Ukraine represents the democratic bacillus right next door on Russia's border, and that Putin and the predecessors were very much concerned would infect the body politic.
Would spread the
Yeah,
idea
the
of freedom.
influence
Yeah,
would eventually spread.
right.
And I'm not going to go into ancient history, but just as a couple of examples, I don't know if I raised this before, Greg, in my prior talks. We all heard about the three branches of government, checks and balances, separation of church and state, and the sanctity of contract. Sounds like the U.S. Constitution. Well, it was Ukraine's. It was the first democratic constitution in Europe 77 years before Philadelphia.
Mm.
We've heard of the Magna Carta, right? Prince John, forced by the nobles in the 1200s, which established the basis for our concept of right and wrong, Bill of Rights, the legal system, and the whole Anglo-Saxon tradition forced upon King John. Well, 200 years before that, in Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, the ruler voluntarily, without any pressure of his own initiative, generated what I'll call the Ukrainian equivalent of the Magna Carta, abolishing the death penalty, limiting his own rights, granting equal rights and obligations on women. So, Russia's claim of 1,000-year history and all of that, well, then where did all of this tradition, manifest itself in Russian history? And it never has. Russia's society is vertical, Ukraine's is horizontal. And that's one of the handicaps Ukrainians always had, because there's a tremendous distrust of authority. They can't deal with it, they can't put it up with it, and you have constant revolutions against central control. And that is the problem that Russia cannot tolerate. And actually, to the extent this is a so-called territorial dispute, again, it is not. But territory is important not for the land so much. Russia has more than enough of it. It is the people on the land. You got to get the land to get rid of the people, kill the children, kidnap the kids, turn them into little Russian automatons as cannon fodder for future wars. And the purpose is to destroy the Russian state, and to the extent necessary, to physically eliminate the Ukrainian population. It's happened in the past. Millions and millions have been killed.
Yeah.
So that's sort of where we're at. You would have thought that when Ukraine asserted its independence in 1991 and the Soviet Union imploded, and we therefore, quote unquote, won the Cold War, that there would have been some understanding that, well, okay, if that's great for us, we should secure not only Ukraine's independence, but the other non-Russian nations that also declared independence. Well, we did the opposite. We stripped Ukraine of its nuclear arsenal, the third largest in the world. We stripped it of its conventional weaponry. We stripped it of any ability to defend itself against what Ukrainians knew would be another invasion by Russia. If Putin couldn't suborn the country, which he tried, then there would be the invasion, and that's what we have right now. So when we look at this in the broadest perspective, the issue on the table for us is our global deterrence credibility. If we do not, and let me add a couple of other things. What's going on right now, among other matters, obviously, is that Ukraine, in defending itself against the Russian invasion, is simultaneously defending itself against and weakening the source of what we call loosely Islamic terrorism against the West. It was established, curated, funded, directed by Moscow since the 1970s, including the use of the airplane as a terrorist weapon. The head of Romania's Foreign Intelligence Service during communist days visited Moscow in the 70s, and he was told very directly that the only way that the Soviet Union will win against the United States is to weaken it through terrorism, and the tool that they came up with was the use of the airplane. So Ayman al-Zawahiri, if that name doesn't ring a bell, it should. He was Osama bin Laden's lieutenant. He spent 6 months in Russia and was and decamped to Afghanistan in 1997. And he's the one who came up with the airplane into the two Twin Towers. That was not his own bright idea. It's rooted back into what he was exposed to in Russia. The reason for these several examples is that there is, I guess the power of, or the lack of credibility, if we're going to be believed that we are going to stand by other allies, or if we're going to be doing anything in the international sphere that requires respect on the part of foes and enemies and credibility on the part of our allies. If you throw Ukraine under the bus now, given its significance to us, then, what are you going to do with any other country, right? Who else coughed up their nukes?
Yeah.
Anybody hear of the Cuban Missile Crisis? Guess where those ballistic missiles were manufactured? The heart of the Soviet Union's nuclear weapon system was established in Ukraine because of the local talent there. The people there are pretty bright, technology-wise and otherwise. So if Ukraine goes down the tubes, that talent, those resources are going to be resurrected, and we're going to have a terrible time. I'm tremendously concerned right now with what I'm hearing from Trump, that what I see here is the same pattern of societal, and it's been this way for a number of years, of societal disintegration, the lack of political cohesion, and particularly, for example, the usurpation now of and the destruction of the CIA, of the DNI, of the FBI you mentioned, the elimination of the Department of Education. All of these things are steps undertaken previously by Moscow, not only after World War II in ruling what we call the East European countries, but indeed the inner core of what is a land-based empire, the so-called Russian Federation. Russia itself, if Russia went back to historical territories, you would have a territorial radius of about maybe 200 miles around Moscow. That's it. That is Russia. Everything else are foreign nations. And before kinetic activity starts against them, you got to soften them up. I see that happening here. And I am tremendously concerned, and in large measure because most of our electorate does not understand what the hell's going on. It's another, what they've heard, and this is where the Biden administration made a massive, massive mistake. All that we heard was, well, we have to stand by democracy, freedom, the domino effect. Well, we've heard that over and over again, from Vietnam and everything else. That doesn't fly anymore. It's not convincing. It's not informative for the populace. If people knew, for example, that we have had 2 prior instances of throwing Ukraine under the bus with a direct negative impact to us. After World War I, when the Russian Empire fell apart, and Ukraine declared independence, and as did other nations, and Russia reinvaded Ukraine, we walked away. We had signed agreements to provide blankets, not even arms, just blankets and medication and the like from surplus stock in Europe. We walked away from it. And the last words of the Ukrainian delegation were, Russia is going to be an existential threat to you within 2 generations. And that's what happened. And of course, it was invaded. You had 10 years of resistance. And what happened? Well, Stalin, imposed a famine on Ukraine, broke the back of the resistance. Yeah. And it was countless. I mean, what Professor Snyder and Applebaum wrote, they wrote 2 books on that famine. Well, they're sort of, they came late to the party because, they talk about 4 million casualties. That's horrific. Well, they made a mistake. It's 4 million children. When you count the adults that were starved to death in the course of a year, you have about 9.5 million in Ukraine and about another 1.25 million of Ukrainians that were starved to death in settlements and regions within Russia proper itself. Those areas were blockaded, and the food was removed, and people just starved. Yeah. As Stalin said, no people, no problem.
Right, and all messaging around that corrupted by the New York Times, quite frankly.
Walter Duranty, yes. There is, and I'll mention this as well because it goes into the fix. In April of 2003, I think it was the April 11th edition of the 2003 of the New York Times, there was an op-ed piece by Easton Jordan, who was the CEO of CNN. And it was a mea culpa, where he admitted that CNN had an agreement with Saddam Hussein not to report any negative news about his regime in exchange for quote-unquote exclusive access. Well, one of the things that CNN learned from sources within Iraq was that Saddam's 2 daughters and their husbands, who had fled to Jordan, that he was going to get them back to Iraq, then he was going to kill them all. CNN did not disclose that to anybody. They did not warn his two daughters and their two husbands what awaited them if they were to return. The precedent to that, and ironically, this was in the New York Times, the precedent to that was an agreement by the New York Times with Stalin not to report any negative news.
That's right.
Walter Duranty was the premier reporter in the world, perhaps at the time. He was the New York Times correspondent in Moscow. And he was one of the persons who was centrally responsible for quashing the news of the famine. And we knew about it. The Brits had an embassy in Ukraine already. We did not, but we knew it. We had legations in the Baltic countries, and we knew fully what was going on. And that news was quashed because we were extending diplomatic recognition to the Soviet Union at that very time. And we did not want the government at the time in Washington, the administration, did not want the electorate to be put off with the news about what's happening in Ukraine. So we have these events in our history which establishes to me, and not because I'm of Ukrainian origin, but I think to anybody with a conscience, that there is a horrific, responsibility that we have that happens to intersect with and coincide our very, very direct foreign policy and national security interests, not only vis-a-vis Russia, but globally around the world. And if you think about China for a second, remember back, Stephanie, you look like you're too young for this, but in 1979,
Okay.
no, you owe me a dinner for that, by the way.
79.
Yeah. We recognized China, right? And remember the big compulsion among the media to immediately change Peking to Beijing?
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it was de rigueur. China was number one. We have to make China happen. It was the big success story for American diplomacy. Whoops. What happened? Where the hell are we now? Despite that certainty. Why did we approach it that way when we had all the precedent in the world, when we supported the Soviet Union and put it on its economic feet and kept it on a life support system for generations? So the error we made with China, we made previously with the Soviet Union, we made it with Russia again in the 90s, and today just takes the cake. This is off the chart of what we're having.
Let's talk about today. I want to ask you about, look, that Marco Rubio in Riyadh, this whole thing going down without Ukraine at the table and all these machinations, and our audience is pretty well informed and watching all of that. Based on where things are right now, what do you see that we should kind of be expecting? Maybe there's a couple of different scenarios ahead of everyone when it comes to what we're going to see happen with regards to Ukraine. I just not so much prognosticating, but just sort of like prepare yourself, everybody. We could be going down this. You could be watching something very shortly that involves us taking. What are you seeing? What do you think?
Well, first of all, what I'm seeing is this has been in the works for a long time. Okay. What is coming out publicly has been choreographed. I see Secretary of Defense Hegseth. I see Marco Rubio. I see everybody on the U.S. side basically reading from a script.
Kremlin-based written script, pretty much, by the way.
Yeah. What's unfolding is the articulation and soon, I think, the implementation step by step of every single issue, every single measure that we've taken in order to stop Russia and at least not prevent it, to prevent it from getting any worse. We have refused to support a UN resolution condemning Russia as an aggressor. I've just read that we are apparently pulling out of the international process of seeking the criminal prosecution of Putin, which probably would never happen really, because you got to get a hold of the guy for jurisdiction. But like you could do it in absentia as a symbolic matter. We're not doing that.
Correct.
Sanctions, I think, are going to be progressively loosened.
That's the thing that
That's
right.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a big thing. I mean, as incomplete, it took us 11 years, and we're still imposing imposing sanctions after 11 years, right? But at least we were doing it, and slowly, but we're doing it. Now that's going to be rolled back. The push. What's almost comical is Trump's push for elections in Ukraine. He has this obsession, this focus to replace Zelensky. Well, why? Well, no, Zelensky does not have 4%.
Yeah.
Zelensky's polling is not 4%. It's over 50%, which is better than what Trump has. I think it's 57% polling for Zelensky in Ukraine. Trump has under 50. So what's this push? Well, the push is very, very clearly because you're going to get some kind of stooge in there because of Russia. Once there's a quote unquote election, believe me, Russia knows how to hook up an election.
Yes, Asia. We're very well aware. They know how to stuff things up, and now there's a Starlink up there. God only knows what that's going to enable.
There's and both for what's happening domestically and internationally, and what a wrecking ball Trump has become. There is a saying in Russian that roughly translates to we're gonna pull the hot coals out of the fire using somebody else's hands. Okay.
Ooh.
Things are always done.
Russian is that?
Excuse me?
That's a very Russian. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
By misdirection, by proxy, so on and so forth. I mean, you remember the attempt on John Paul II's life, the assassination attempt decades ago? Well, that was done through the Bulgarian KGB, which was, of course, a proxy for the KGB in Moscow.
Yeah.
The Bulgarian KGB wouldn't use their own people, obviously. That's stupid. So they found somebody else to do it, right? The young Turkish guy. That's always the way things are done. And you have to sort of follow the yellow line and the dotted line to get back to the source. But it is always it. And the countries that have experience with this, there's a demarcation line between Eastern Europe and the Scandinavian countries and the Baltic countries and Western Europe. So what's going to happen? I don't see anything anything positive happening. Another thing just occurred to me. The anomaly, we have 300 billion. Actually, it's more. It's about 320 billion, and I think it's euros. I don't think it's dollars. I forget what the designation was. Sitting in Brussels, right? A small amount of it in the United States, which we have insulated. We're using some interest on it for Ukraine. So there's $300 billion of Russian blood money out there, but Trump wants $500 billion out of Ukraine for its mineral wealth, without a single syllable of any, not a whisper, not a whiff of in exchange for what?
No, I mean, it's a shakedown. It's not a deal. There's nothing coming from there's nothing Putin's putting on the table at all. He's just sitting back and getting it all. And Trump is shaking down Ukraine and everywhere else.
That was the show tune I forgot. I was going to be Trump is busting out all over.
Oh, busting out all over. It's a bust out.
Stephanie, here's the rebuttal to what you said. All right. And the rebuttal is, well, no. You don't understand. That is repayment for aid given now. Now, let's leave aside the Grand Canyon between the real amount of aid and the number that Trump is using, the 500 billion, okay? The amount of aid allocated is also, it's only about 100 something billion, but the amount of aid actually received is far less than even the amount allocated. All right, so we're talking about an amount, let's say $100 billion, right? Well, when you value the nuclear arsenal, the implosion of the nuclear weapons and the entire nuclear industry in Ukraine, that alone is well over $1 trillion. Okay. When you value the land lost, the lives lost, the economy, the cities destroyed as a result of our fecklessness, the numbers, I mean, they just go up and up and up.
Yeah,
I would tell Ukraine, go ahead and sign anything.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to paying, you present, oh, wait a minute, by the way, can you please refund this for us first before we pay you? Right? I mean,
I want you to do me a favor, though. That's the line, right? That's ringing in everybody's ears right now.
We have it's quite astonishing.
It's astonishing. It's you know, we were talking before the show, everybody, of like, okay, let's try to somehow be up about this, or not falsely, and not searching for false hope, but just to try not to have it be so dark, and where we came to, and just understanding. And I thank you for walking everyone through all of that, Victor. It was wonderful. It's just, you know, there isn't anything bright to look for in this moment when it comes to Ukraine. And I don't know where to, I mean, my heart is there, but I don't even know where to place my thoughts, if that makes sense. I don't know where to, I want to have a positive thought, and I don't know where to place that. I don't know where to look and have that when it comes to Ukraine.
What about, and Victor, you can speak to this, you know, I'm curious what your thoughts about this are. The one entity that's large enough to sort of seize the mantle from the United States and help Ukraine is the EU, all of it, with Britain.
Right. Where are they?
France, Germany, England, especially getting their shit together.
Falling on their faces.
But they're not. I feel like Vance going there and you know, saying what he said did wake people up. That seems to be at least a little bit.
I mean, is this
Macron
what it
is saying?
We need like a sheriff to show up and just start moonstruck slapping everybody across the face. Why do they have to be awakened? How can they not? This has been now 2-3 years. How can they not?
11.
Yeah, Crimea. How can wake them up from where have they been?
It's not wake them up, but I think like get to the point where if you're going to start raising armies and doing all this, the people in the countries need to understand why and be behind it. And I think now they might be behind it. Maybe.
Yeah, here's a problem. I had a very interesting interview. When the hell was it? Oh, it was this morning with the Europeans out of Brussels. And the dirty little secret is the UK does not have a single air defense system capability. None. They have about 70 tanks. They have nothing. They have been stripped down to the bone. France has almost nothing.
Oh, God.
Europe, as the United States, Europe essentially denuded itself.
Yeah, thinking,
with the fall of the Soviet Union, never rebuilt.
Oh my God!
And remember, we don't have any unanimity at all within NATO. We have the countries that have been suborned by Moscow, Hungary, Slovakia, Germany is on its way, perhaps. Italy was a bit of a nice turnaround, but I don't know where that's going to go. It's going to take time, and the electorate has to understand that Russia has been going full bore with a 100% dedicated war economy. They are all in.
Yeah.
We're not waking up, right? And this is not going to be like Pearl Harbor and the bombs are falling and we wake up and we say, oh, well, wow, we got to gear up. And we were able to gear up because we were geographically distant and we had the capacity. The impact on us, I'm afraid, is the first impact, I think, is going to be economic, right? I mean, how much of the stuff do we have in our house that comes in from overseas, and how many of our jobs manufacture products that are exported? Well, if you destroy the so-called international order, that includes the law of the sea, navigation, and everything else. If you can't have vessels traveling the waters,
Yeah.
your ports are still. Remember the strike we almost had, or had for about a day at the ports?
A lot about ports.
Remember COVID? Remember
Yeah.
the supply chain problems?
Yeah.
I remember when a guy couldn't parallel park in the Suez
Oh
Canal.
my
And
God.
everything shut down
Everything
for a
shut
week.
down. Yeah.
You want to go to a CVS and get your prescription refill tomorrow morning?
Yeah.
They may not be there, but that's good. You know why? Because Musk is going to have his prescription refilled as well. There's narcotics.
I don't know that he's walking
I
into
know,
a
he's
drugstore
amazing.
for that.
I understand.
Speaking of traders,
let's move to now we're going to go back to the clock.
we're going to go back to the clock,
which you're going to stick around for. And this topic is people will say they're in love, which means Krasnov, which is, of course, supposedly Donald Trump's KGB code name, as revealed by the former foreign minister for Kazakhstan, article of which you sent me this morning, but I think he posted it on his Facebook page.
He posted it
saying basically, yeah, this guy was, and the Kazakh guy was working for the KGB in Moscow at the time.
Correct.
Yeah. So,
and knew that Donald Trump had been recruited and turned as a Russian asset, a Soviet asset at the time, while he was married to Ivana, daughter of the Czech intelligence guy.
Right.
Right. And he had a name.
Yeah. Krasnov,
who I had to look up. The what?
Beautiful boy.
Beautiful boy. I had to look that up. It was a writer in the old czars. I don't even know when. Like, you know.
But the derivative is from the word krasny, which is beautiful, nice, pretty.
Oh,
pretty,
really?
Beautiful, nice, pretty. Interestingly enough, Roy Cohn's nickname for him.
That totally tracks then, doesn't
that
it?
tracks.
I told you he would know what it means.
There we go.
Beautiful
boy.
So what's your take on Trump being
outed?
We've been
Yet
talking
again.
about this for years.
How many times has he been outed?
A lot.
A lot. I think he even outed himself several times.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Russia, if you're listening, they're always listening, dude. They're always listening. Well, what's your take on all of this?
Well, I'm not privy to any currently classified information, but I can tell you that one of the premier strengths of Russian intelligence, and remember, the intelligence services in Russia, they don't operate the way we think intelligence services operate. No, intelligence. Let's go out and steal some secrets, right? Russian intelligence deals with manipulation, subornation of agitation, maskirovka. So they are past masters at invading and exploiting the human psyche, weaknesses of any kind, and they're always on the lookout, for business people, real estate developers, fashion models, whoever, whatever. Academics are, oh my God, academics are a favorite target because
so easy.
The multiplier effect of the academic on inculcating new generations of innocents who come in, and they're all, in the West, I'm saying, right? So it's the three B's, the banya, the walk through the birchwood forest, and the bolshoi are the routine experience for the visiting academic, and to slowly seduce him into this, glorious Russian culture. But all of that being said, when I heard,
I think there's a young woman in there, or boy.
Hey, be careful. We don't want to say too much about academics.
We don't want to say.
We don't want to get mifsued. Sorry.
In 2016, this was such a singular moment, but at least it was for me. When I mentioned it to other people, they don't remember it. Maybe either of you two will. When we knew that Trump was going to be running for president.
Oh God.
And clear out of the clear blue sky, almost out of any context at all, he starts talking about, I like the Russians. Shouldn't we be friends with Russia? What's wrong with having good relations with Russia?
Mm-hmm.
Repeated several times on several occasions. And that was so out of character with the general context and framework of a discussion. It's like we're talking right now about the subject matter, and all of a sudden I'm going off and talking about golf, right? Like, what?
Yeah.
And what he said, how he said it, to me, he didn't have to say anything more. I knew what was happening at that point in time.
You knew what he was.
I knew what he was. I knew what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
And if he was talking to any other audience other than a Western audience, and particularly, unfortunately, an American audience, and we're just not tuned in. Our antenna is not up
about it. Yeah.
That to me said it all. And then I obviously read a little bit more about his background, and he talked about his son. I don't know which one of them said more than once, well, there's a lot of Russian money,
Eric.
right? And I don't know whether I don't think the compromat that they have on Trump is I don't think it's sexual. I don't think it's these these hookers pissing on Obama's bed and that's and everything with him in there or whatever the hell it was, because he thrives on that and the public doesn't seem to care. I think what it is, and it focuses, the hold also focuses on the narcissistic part of him and his own marketing of himself in terms of his financial acumen. I think what it is what his tax return would have revealed. Not that there would be a label next to an income number, but what it would lead to, and it would show the pervasiveness that what he, or at least his son or sons, admitted to being the Russian money that's involved and has been involved, and that
He's a laundry maid.
Okay. I think that will. Excuse me?
He's just the maid. He's just the maid. He does the laundry.
Yeah.
And who he does it for.
Right.
And what it also once that's understood, I've done a lot of writing about this as well as Greg. Once that's understood, that's really what his business was, there's an understanding then that it really is he's just putting a name on something. He doesn't own a lot of those buildings. I know for a fact, one of the big things was that there was a large period of time where he had lost ownership of Trump Tower, and quite possibly his name. I think he was able to regain some of that. So God only knows where he's at now, but the mythology of Donald Trump, the businessman, Donald Trump, I built an empire, I'm so wealthy, that myth, once you understand that he was just laundering, he was a vehicle.
He's a laundry machine.
He's a laundry machine. He didn't have ownership.
Right.
And so, he wasn't building anything. And so the myth of who he was crumbles. They also held a lot of his debt. Like he could crush him through all those Deutsche Bank mirror transfers. So it is primarily, I agree with you. I think there's probably dirt everywhere. And I think, God only knows where
it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both.
It could be both. But certainly it's the fraudulency of who and what he actually is. And how the myth would crumble if people knew, and the myth would crumble if they also knew that he was just an owned piece of shit. Yeah. He's the shit on their shoe, right?
But look at the precise targeting of how you establish the leverage, right? When you look at the narcissism and you look at how he's hyping himself, well, what better way to keep a leash on him than the threat of that balloon bursting in his face?
Correct.
He will do everything himself to prevent that from occurring, and consequently will kowtow to you. It's not necessarily that, he's not an agent in the traditional sense, right? They're not telling him, do this, do this, do this. He is doing things presumptively in his own interest to save his ass, but it is done with the effect and with his knowledge that he is pushing Russia's interests
That's right. And they're helping him
Right.
find
Okay.
the words. They're helping him by surrounding him with people that can manage him through whatever process he needs to go through specifically for Putin's aims.
This is subordination by proxy.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm saying
Oh, I love
subordination
that. That's it.
of,
That's it.
of the United of us,
Yeah.
of this country.
Reaching your hands into the coals using somebody else's hands, right? He's using ours.
Yeah.
Using our own hands to burn our own president's hands to burn ourselves down.
Oh my
Jesus.
God. Okay, well, we have to wrap
We
up
have
the
to wrap
topic. So
that.
this is the part of the show where we do announcements. So Victor, you want to talk a little bit about the Center for European Democracy and any other announcements that you might have?
Yeah, no, I don't have any particular announcements. You've already had the one about your gala debut at the Institute with Vindman. That's on Monday night, right?
That's on Monday night.
Monday.
Monday night, New York
Institute,
City.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, for those in the New York area, there are a series of back-to-back documentary films. Some of them, actually most of them, internationally acclaimed, that are playing at the Institute on Sunday. Porcelain Wars, Intercepted. This is a fantastic film of intercepted radio transmissions, unencrypted radio transmissions and phone calls between the Russian military personnel in Ukraine and their families, almost all of them women, mothers, girlfriends, children, even in some cases, wives, and the lackadaisical way things are described to them, and they're urging from the other end, in other words, from their families, telling them, no, you have to kill more. Let me give you some ideas for torture. This is so explicit that
It's so dark.
when it was screened in Paris, a French critic said, no, this is to be made up. But people in the audience, one woman in particular from Czechoslovakia who was there in 1968, said, no, this is the way they are. This is how they act. In any event, that's coming up at the Institute. And the Center for Eastern European Democracy is an organization, a charitable organization, or it's a minor think tank in Toronto, of which I'm a senior advisor to it. And we've produced, they'll be coming out shortly, a booklet of information, data, and arguments for people who are involved studying or maybe even involved in the actual so-called negotiation process, which never have begun. And it's for the media as well. They're trying to reach out to the media. I'll shoot you guys a couple of copies.
Okay, great.
I'll give you links to it.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thank you.
This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming back and joining us.
Sure.
And all right. I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah.
See you on Monday.
Very good, Stephanie. Nice meeting you.
Be
Take
there.
care.
I hope to see you
Take care.
soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah. I feel smarter now, right?
We're smarter
Yeah,
and
we're
more
smarter.
worried. I did have one announcement.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Yeah. So just to remind everybody that next Sunday,
Next
a
Sunday.
week from this Sunday, you're coming up
I'm coming to Saranac.
to Saranac Lake, and we'll post for everybody if anybody's in the area and they want to come by for Adirondack Photos for Change 20th anniversary. And we're also interviewing, and now I can't remember, Sarah Reese, is that right?
Yep.
Of Indivisible, New York Indivisible will be our guest. And so we're doing a live show from there. It'll be great. So everybody tune in a week from this Sunday. If you can't come and join us in person, just tune in. It'll be on the YouTube channel. We'll live stream it. It'll be great.
It's Adirondack Voters for Change. They have a Facebook page if you're still on Facebook.
If you're still on Facebook.
Yeah. That's the thing.
The other thing I want to announce is that there was this amazing piece of media that you and Chunk did. And we watched it once, and we're going to watch it again.
You want to watch it
promise?
Again? Okay.
Wait, let's wait.
Should we wait to the end?
We'll wait to the
We'll play it
end.
at the
I
end.
want to see it again.
We'll play at the end.
Okay. All right. Let's do our last one. Let's do 5 minutes because we are.
Yeah.
That was great with him, but I want to.
He's great. Yeah. First of all,
get to that meeting.
No. I meant to say one of the readers of Prevail, Lisa, wrote in the comments. There's an expression for somebody that's like a mobster kind of like aide de camp.
Yeah.
And it's called a cigarette holder. like a guy that just kind of goes around and does whatever the boss says.
Oh,
Isn't that great?
not the umbrella holder, the cigarette holder.
Isn't that awesome? It's
That's-
I jumped out of my seat with the
I
term
like
because
it.
it was so
Yeah,
good.
that's
Anyway,
good.
that's nothing to do with anything
Nothing to do
other
with
than
anything.
the lobster.
What
running
were
the-
we going to talk about in our final segment?
Okay,
Now,
here's what I want to talk about because, and I feel this is interesting because I think everybody has been not struggling really, and working towards how are we going to emotionally, spiritually, mentally get through it for the next however many years this lasts. Because we don't know how many years it's going to last, right?
our
And
lifetime, I
you know
think.
what can what can we do? What approach should we take? And I've been
Right.
thinking about it, obviously as everybody has. And it seems to me that, we have to be vigilant. It's obviously very important for everybody. We have to know what's going on, but we also can't be so vigilant and so online all the time that our heads explode and we just curl up in the fetal position, right? I think I said this last week, but
We got to stay in our lanes is where you're going. Find your lane.
yeah.
Pick a lane.
Katherine Stewart on my podcast this morning when we had our discussion, she has this great book out called Money. What is it? Money, Lies, and God.
Money, Lies, and God.
Money, Lies, and God. It talks about all of the sort of taxonomy of these bad guys and how they all fit together.
Yeah.
But she was saying at the end of the podcast, like, pick a lane. And I think this is important. Like, not everybody needs to do everything, but everybody has to do something. I mean, and just pick something, no matter what it is, however small it is. It doesn't matter as long as you're doing something. And, newspapers, for example, they don't operate in a way where every reporter at the newspaper works on every single thing that happens under the sun.
Right.
No,
They have a beat.
People have sports and people have business and they have a beat, right, that they
Have a beat.
cover. And you and I have had beats. We have had
We have our
self-assigned beats for the last 9 years.
Well, now I'm assigning you the beat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of
we got
doing
the
more
beat. We got the
of
beat.
that. We
We
got a
got the
beat.
beat.
Okay.
And that's what we do. And this
Yeah.
is our role in this whole thing. Not that we can't do other things or whatever, and other people are going to have other things to do. People are going to organize. People are going to go out in the street. People are going to think of other ways that we can fight back. And I think that, the resistance, that word, resistance, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be, 10 million people in Washington, D.C. with pitchforks or whatever. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be a general strike where the entire country shuts down for a week. It would be nice if that happened.
Well, listen, I think all that stuff is going to happen and has to happen. And what you're saying is find your piece.
Yes.
Along the way with something like that you can do. It might just be like, okay, here's my piece. My piece is I'm going to make sure, like, I'm not saying this for myself, and it can be anything from diving into your community and helping rebuild your community.
Yeah.
A lot of people already doing that, and keeping it stable, checking in with your friends, all of that. But specific things like, you know what? I'm going to pay attention to all of the economic moves so that the population can make. So there's going to be next Friday, right? Is that right? Do I have it right, you guys? The 28th. So the 28th is a blackout. So we're not purchasing, right? And then there's going to be a week in March, I think, or either March or April, we don't purchase anything from Amazon for that week. And so starting with the small steps, like we said before. So maybe your beat, if you're not someone like us that does media and writes and, whatever it might be, maybe your beat is just, I'm paying attention to this particular calendar and I'm going to make sure I participate in all these things and tell 2 other people to join in with me. Let's do this together, forms a team and say, okay, we're all going to, we got the Amazon thing coming up. So let's get ourselves ready for that. Where are our local stores that we need to get to? And maybe start making those lifestyle shifts. So it's not just 1 week in April. Yeah. You're actually figuring out how to be wiser with, our control of the resources that we do have available to us. Yeah. Maybe it's something that had to do with keeping people on top, finding things for, let's say, LGBTQ within the community, or let's say even, they're coming after this RFK Jr. I can't get going on that because my friends here can attest. My head starts to explode. Yeah. He drives me so crazy. But, the threat of taking away SSIs and doing things like, so there's other ways to think about how we can help source those of people in our family, in our friends, in our community who might be seeing their medications going away or their mental health support disappearing in some manner, things like that, whatever might be important. Sorry, that's my little rant, but I think we can find, not just know what our lane is and find your lane, but if you're feeling like I don't have a lane, you have a lane.
Yeah.
You have a lane. Think of the top 3 things that are most important to you in your life, that affect you the most, that affect the people around you the most, and figure out a way to be involved in a proactive manner so that you can be there to help shore up what's needed behind the people you love so that they're not falling down, that you're kind of there behind it. It will make you feel better if you start to look for ways to do that. This is
not that this is like some grand thing, but I'm trying to, in my own mind, come to peace with it. Like, and part of it for me is I'm trying to, obviously pay attention to everything, and you can't. There's so much. Not in granular detail.
You need people around also to understand that, right?
Yeah.
Of like, what, all that sounds amazing, but I can do this, right? This is what I can do. I can do this thing here. And so please support me in this thing I can do here, instead of having an expectation that I can do a million different things.
Yeah. Not everybody can do a million different things.
Nobody can do a million different things.
Maybe Gal, but that's it.
That's
it.
all.
Just
so, Gal.
There's I forget who said it. One writer was talking about writing and said, everything, the stories have all been told before. The plots are all old. There's nothing new. The only thing that you have to add to it is your own voice, but that is enough. And that's it, And I feel like, that's where we're at. And the main thing is that everything is, valuable. Whatever people do, even if it's a small thing, it all contributes to the whole. And that's it,
That's true.
That's it. That's what I got.
I love that. Hang on a second.
Happy
Did you have something you wanted?
Lewis.
Did you want to say hi?
Just say happy birthday, John Lewis.
Oh, we have a friend here. Happy birthday, John Lewis. Yes. Oh, how old would he have been?
It would have been his birthday.
I don't know either.
I don't actually know. I just know it was
I miss him. You start to feel the loss sometimes years later, because you think about what, oh God, that voice is missing. Talking about a voice.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
You want to play it again?
we're going to get through it, guys. We're going to get through it. And this one way that we're going to get through it is to watch this little ditty
And
about
relentlessly mock the motherfucker.
relentlessly mocking Elon.
He's so erratic, got a face like a haddock, but he thinks he's Jude Law in Gattaca, ketamine addict. He's so easy to honey pot, it ain't even funny. He got all of his money from Russia, or maybe from Saudi Arabia. Gave Ashley his baby, but didn't go near her labia. Why? X is down, the rocket won't launch. X is down, the rocket won't launch. X is down, the rocket won't launch. Grimes told Azalea his implants are failure. Grimes told Azalea his implants are failure. Grimes told Azalea his implants are failure. Grimes told